Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Here I would like to discuss the anatomy of skull. The skull which contains your cranium and the face, and the cranium encloses the brain and face hangs down below it. For discussion of the skull, we should know about its anatomical position. Its anatomical position, the skull is oriented so that the inferior margins of the orbits and the superior margin of the external acoustic meatus, they are in horizontal plane. This plane is known as Frankfurt's plane. So this plane place the skull in its anatomical position. For studying the skull, there are some views of skull. These are named as norma verticalis. This is the superior view of the skull. Norma occipitalis, this is the back view, posterior view of the skull. Norma basalis, this is the inferior surface of the skull. Norma frontalis, the interior view of the skull, and norma lateralis, the lateral view of the skull. So these are the 5 views of the exterior of the skull which are used in anatomical description, and each is spoken as norma. So first, this is the norma verticalis. The vault of the skull is also known as calvaria, and the bones of the calvaria and the underlying lobes of the brain have similar names, that is frontal, parietal, occipital and temporal. So the frontal bone ossification is from 2 ossification centers, and there are right and left frontal bones at birth, but they normally fuse to form a single frontal bone in the adults. So there is a metopic suture which occasionally present in the frontal bones, in which the frontal bones remain separate, and the sagittal suture will therefore continue forward to the root of the nose. This is known as metopic suture. So in the diagram, this is the metopic suture. Metopic suture is always present at birth but usually disappears by 6 to 7 years of age. And metopon is the equal to it means that is forehead. And metopic suture may persist throughout the life and may be mistaken for fracture. So sagittal suture, it is posterior to the frontal bone, and there are between the parietal bones which meet in the midline to form sagittal suture, hence the name sagittal section of the body or sagittal plane of the body. Then there is coronal suture in the norma verticalis, the junction between the frontal and the 2 parietal bone. This is the coronal suture, hence named as coronal plane. Then there is a word known as bragma. It is the intersection of the coronal and the sagittal suture. It is highlighted. At this side, anterior fontanelle is found in the baby's head. Then this is the anterior fontanelle location. At birth, the bones are quite widely separated so that there is a diamond shaped area which is bounded by the 2 frontal bones and the 2 parietal bones which remain unossified. Then there is parietal foramina near the sagittal suture. These are the 2 parietal foramina, and they transmit small emissary veins from the superior sagittal sinus. Then there is term known as vertex. It is the most superior part of the skull located near the center of the sagittal suture. This is the vertex of the skull. Lambdoid suture, the 2 parietal bones and the occipital bones meet at an inverted Y-shaped suture, which is therefore known as lambdoid because of its shape. This is the lambdoid suture. So these are the sutures and different bones which are found in the norma verticalis. Then frontal and the parietal eminences. From the superior aspect, we can see the frontal, and these are the parietal eminences and these are the frontal eminences. Eminences means protuberances, elevations. Then come to the next norma, that is the norma occipitalis, that is the posterior view of the skull. Here we find the lambda, which is the junction point between the parietal and the occipital bones, and the point lambda is the point of intersection where lambdoid suture and the sagittal suture meet. So there are 2 terms, lambdoid suture and lambda. The word lambda means it is the intersection of the lambdoid suture and the sagittal suture. So the posterior pole of the skull, which is the part that will hit the ground first when falling backwards is located below the lambda. Now next is the occipital protuberance, external occipital protuberance. It is marked by the arrow. This is the external occipital protuberance. It is projection located below the lambda and can be felt by running your finger up to the middle groove at the back of your neck. So you can feel it also. Then there are nuchal lines. These are stretching laterally from the external occipital protuberance. These are the superior nuchal lines highlighted with red color in this diagram, and below that we find the inferior nuchal lines highlighted with blue color. So inferior nuchal line, these are the surface landmark for the attachment of tentorium cerebelli, which straddles the transverse venous sinus. So in this inferior nuchal lines on the anterior side we have the transverse venous sinus. Then the superior nuchal lines, this is the superior limit of the neck, and they are providing attachment to the sternocleidomastoid and trapezius muscles. Above the superior nuchal line we have highest nuchal line also, which gives origin to the occipitofrontalis muscle. Then there is a term known as inion. It is the summit of the external occipital protuberance. The inion line opposite the interval between the occipital poles of the cerebrum, and it marks the termination of the straight and the superior sagittal sinus. So here we have demarcated the superior sagittal sinus and the straight sinus. Both these sinuses meet at the inion. Inion is just the internal aspect of the external occipital protuberance. Then there are sutural bones in the norma occipitalis. These are found in the sutures. That's why they are known as sutural bones. They are commonly located at the lambdoid suture. Then come to the third view of the skull, that is norma lateralis. So this is the lateral view of the skull. Here we find the temporal bone, and the major part is the squamous part of the temporal bone, which contributes to the side wall of the cranium in the region popularly known as temple. So this area is known as temple because of the temporal bone. Name of the bone from tempus means time. Is supposed to be derived from the fact that this is the region where first time graying of the hair occurs. That is why it is known as temple. A good story behind, but perhaps the German Schlafbein, sleeping bone, is more descriptive over here. Then there is a term known as asterion in the lateral view. It is the meeting point of the temporoparietal and lambdoid suture. This is known as asterion. Temporoparietal suture means the suture between the temporal and the parietal bone. Then the parts of the temporal bone over here are, there are four parts: squamous part, petrous part, tympanic plate, and the styloid process. So in this diagram we can see the squamous part, mastoid part, styloid process, petrous part, and the tympanic plate. All these parts are highlighted in this diagram. Then squamotemporal fissure, it forms the socket for the head of the mandible, and it is highlighted. It is circled with red color over here, where we form the temporomandibular joint. Then on the lateral view we can see the zygomatic arch. It is a superficial temporal pulse can be felt at this point, which is the posterior root of the zygomatic arch. So here we can see the pulsations of the superficial temporal artery, which is a branch of external carotid artery. These are the pulsating points at the zygomatic arch. So next is zygomaticofacial foramen. Zygomatic arch is perforated by the zygomaticofacial foramen. It is highlighted with this black arrow, and this foramen transmits an artery and the name of the same name, that is zygomaticofacial nerve and zygomaticofacial artery are passing through this foramen. Then pterion. Pterion is the point where greater wing of the sphenoid and the frontal bone, parietal bone, and temporal bones are meeting. So this suture is known as pterion. This region is known as pterion, and pterion is situated 4 cm above the midpoint of the zygomatic arch, about 3 cm posterior to the zygomatic process of the frontal bone, and it is a surgical site where we can find the middle meningeal artery. So here pterion is related to the middle meningeal artery, which is a branch from the external carotid, and it is supplying a huge amount of area of the brain. Then this middle meningeal artery is a part of the maxillary artery, which is again a branch of external carotid, and it is entering into the cranial cavity through foramen spinosum. Then this is the next view of the skull, that is the norma frontalis. This is the frontal view, and there are a number of foramina in this view. Some of them are supraorbital, infraorbital, and mental foramina. They lie in the same vertical line. So you can see this, that we have drawn a vertical line which is passing through these foramen. This is supraorbital, infraorbital, and this is mental foramina. So these foramina, they are passing the cutaneous nerves of the face for supplying the skin of the face, and the nerves are ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular nerves, which are passing through these foramina respectively. So this is the supraorbital foramen, and this is known as notch. When in case of dry skull, this is known as notch. Then infraorbital foramen, we can see it is transmitting the veins and the nerves according to the foramen, name of the foramen. So the name of the foramen and the structures passing through these are the same. Then mental foramina, it is lying just below the second premolar tooth in the mandible, and it is passing the mental nerves and vessels. So here we can see the norma frontalis, the anterior view of the skull, and there are three parts. The upper part contains the forehead and middle of the frontal bone. The middle part contains three cavities, that is the two orbital and one nasal cavity, and the lower part contains the upper and the lower jaws. So this is the norma frontalis. Here we can see the glabella. Glabella is the midpoint of superciliary arches. Superciliary arches, these are the elevations above the orbits. Nasion is the meeting point of the frontal bone and the nasal bone, that is internasal suture and the frontal bone. So this is the nasion. So here we can see the frontonasal suture, that is the demarcated with the 1 number in the diagram. Then the frontozygomatic suture, it is a suture between the frontal bone and the zygomatic process of the frontal process of the zygomatic bone, and it is demarcated with number 2. Internasal suture between the two nasal bones, it is demarcated with number 3. And zygomatico-maxillary suture, the suture between the maxilla and the zygomatic bone. And some inconstant sutures are also found, like metopic suture we have discussed in the previous slides, that is the suture between the two frontal bones, and intermaxillary suture, that is the suture between the two maxilla. Okay. Next, the norma basalis. This is the inferior view of the skull, norma basalis. It is bounded in front by the incisor teeth, that is these are the incisor teeth, and laterally by the alveolar arches. These are the alveolar arches, and the lower border of the zygomatic bone. This is zygomatic arch, and the mastoid process behind, and the superior nuchal lines over here. So these are the boundaries of the norma basalis. Norma basalis can be divided into three parts: anterior, middle, and posterior part. So this is the anterior part of the norma basalis, where we find the incisive fossa, the alveolar arches, which is containing the teeth, and there are different groups like foramina also, like greater palatine, lesser palatine foramina, which are passing greater palatine nerves and vessels and lesser palatine nerves and vessels. In the middle part, we find the choanae and the medial pterygoid plate and lateral pterygoid plate. So we can see them in the diagram. This is the lateral pterygoid plate and this is medial pterygoid plate, and the space between these two is known as scaphoid fossa. So in the norma basalis we find the occipital, temporal and sphenoid bones which are making the base of the skull, that is the base of the cranium, and many foramina are found in this view. And near the foramen spinosum there is spine of sphenoid also. Here we find the spine of sphenoid. It is demarcated in the diagram. This is spine of sphenoid, and just close to it we have this foramen spinosum, and just behind the spine of sphenoid we find the jugular foramina. So jugular foramina is occupied by the jugular bulb of the internal jugular vein. So remember the structures which are passing through each foramina. Then there is stylomastoid foramen between the styloid process and mastoid process. In the diagram we can see this is the stylomastoid foramina which is passing the facial nerve, that is the 7th cranial nerve. Then the deep surface of the mastoid process is channeled into the digastric notch. This digastric notch is highlighted with this red color, and here we have the origin of posterior belly of digastric muscle. And medial to the digastric notch we have the groove for occipital artery. So this is the groove for occipital artery. Then in front of the jugular foramina there is the petrous part of the temporal bone, and is the carotid canal. Carotid canal is transmitting the internal carotid artery. So here we can see the carotid canal with the carotid artery. And there is foramen ovale just in front of this foramen spinosum. This is the foramen ovale, which is oval shaped, and it is larger and is found in the greater wing of the sphenoid. So this is the course of the internal carotid artery. This S-shaped course of the internal carotid artery is known as carotid siphon. So it ascends in the neck and enters into the carotid canal, and it has a tortuous neck intracranial course, and this tortuous portion is known as carotid siphon. So then there is mandibular fossa for the articulation with the head of mandible and forms a TM joint, that is temporomandibular joint. It is also known as glenoid fossa. So here we can see the lateral and the medial pterygoid plate. These are clearly visible and highlighted in this image. Then there is foramen magnum, which is the largest foramina at the base of the skull, and it is transmitting our spinal cord. Then there are occipital condyles just lateral to the front of the half of the foramen magnum. These are the occipital condyles. These are easily visible in this diagram, and these occipital condyles forms atlanto-occipital joint, that is the joint between the atlas and the occipital bone. And deep to the occipital condyle there is bone is perforated by the hypoglossal canal. So this is the hypoglossal canal, the small canal, and this is transmitting the hypoglossal nerve, that is the 12th cranial nerve. Then there is posterior hypocondylar canal for the transmission of vein from the sigmoid sinus to the suboccipital venous plexus, and there is a suture between the basi-occipit and the sphenoid. This suture is known as basi-sphenoid joint, and this is ossified at the age of 25 years. And there is a tubercle on the basi-occiput. This is known as pharyngeal tubercle. It is forming the roof of the nasopharynx. Then there is an individual bone at the base of the skull. This is the vomer bone, and it is attached by the fibrous joint to the undersurface of the body of the sphenoid. This yellow colored bone is the sphenoid complete, and this purple colored bone is the vomer, which is articulating with the sphenoid bone with the help of fibrous joint. Then there is greater palatine foramina over here. It is transmitting the greater palatine nerves and vessels. So this is the interior view of the skull. Here we find the different bones like frontal, sphenoid, temporal, parietal, occipital, ethmoid. These are all highlighted, and different canals are also mentioned over here. In the anterior cranial fossa there is the accommodation for the anterior lobe of the brain, and the middle cranial fossa we find the two temporal lobes of the brain. And the posterior cranial fossa, it is shallower and wider than those of the middle cranial fossa and accommodates the occipital lobes of the brain. So this is the anterior cranial fossa. Here we find the anterior clinoid process. It is demarcated, and here close to it we have the optic canal transmitting the optic nerve, and just medial to optic canal we find the optic groove. In the anterior cranial fossa we also find the crista galli, which is providing attachment for the dura mater, and also the sieve like plate known as cribriform plate, which is transmitting the olfactory nerves. This is the foramina in the middle cranial fossa, that is optic canal, clearly visible. Superior orbital fissure, foramen rotundum, foramen ovale, foramen spinosum, and foramen lacerum. The structures which are passing through these foramina, these are also given in this diagram, so please go through it and learn. These are important. Then this is the sphenoid bone. Here we have given the different parts important for your exam, that is the hypophyseal fossa. Hypophyseal fossa also known as pituitary fossa because pituitary gland lies over here. And then there is tuberculum celli. Tuberculum celli is also demarcated over here. Then there is dorsal celli. This is the back of the saddle. So anteriorly lies the tuberculum celli and posteriorly lies the dorsum celli. So this is the posterior cranial fossa having foramen magnum, hypoglossal canal, jugular foramina, and internal acoustic canal. All these are clearly visible in this diagram, and the structures passing through them are mentioned in front of them, and you should learn and please go through it. And these are the muscular attachments at the base of the skull. Now determination of sex. So cranium is the second best bone for determination of sex of a bone. There are crest and ridges which are more pronounced in case of the skull of males. These are highlighted with ABC. And there is chin significantly more square in males. Jaw mastoid process wide and robust in case of males, and forehead slopes more in case of males. It is just opposite to the females. Now these are fontanelles. These are the areas of the fibrous tissue membrane separating the bones of the calvaria, and these are the wide gaps in the sutural lines. These are fontanelles. There are 6 main fontanelles, anterior, posterior. 2 anterolateral and 2 posterolateral fontanelles are found in the fetal skull. Of them, largest is the anterior fontanelle. It is diamond shaped, rhomboid shaped, and it is found at the site of bregma and fuse at the age of 18 months of life. Then this is the posterior fontanelle, highlight with red color. In the neonatal skull, sagittal and the lambdoid suture do not quite meet, and there is triangular posterior fontanelle. It fuses earlier before the end of the first year. So these are the different fontanelles. Now the questions related to this topic are: write short note on fontanelles of the fetal skulls. Then second question is superior orbital fissure. So you have to just give the structure and the structures passing through these superior orbital fissure. Then third question is structures passing through foramen ovale. So you just remember that I have just in previous slides mentioned you about the different foramina at the base of the skull. So this completes our topic. Thank you so much.